Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Hayden Newberry Fishing. We're out in the garage today, rigging some tackle, kind of getting back in the swing of posting some regular videos now that I'm getting the house kind of settled here, getting all the renovations and stuff done. But a video that I really wanted to make after a tournament I competed in the other day that I thought of. It was an American Bass Trail tournament. If you guys haven't heard of them, here in Southern Illinois, they put on a really good event. They've got really great paybacks, some things that are kind of hard to find with a lot of tournament organizations nowadays. Really, when it comes to entry fees compared to payouts, makes a lot more sense than a lot of tournament trails. I know I've made some videos about like BFLs, things like that, and this isn't what this video is about, by the way, but the money doesn't make sense with a lot of those tournament trails. It's like you pay $200 and you're competing against like 200 people, or more money than that sometimes, competing against huge fields and stuff, and just need to make like a top 10 to get your money back. They capped it at like 40 boats. First place team made like $5,000, and they paid out to the top 5 spots. They didn't try to stretch it out to like the top 20 or something in a 40 boat tournament. So the money actually made sense with the $200 entry fee for a team tournament. Really good payout, really good event. Wanted to give them a shout out because that's a good thing that we got tournament trails like that popping up. Anyway, so the whole topic that I'm going to talk about right now is bite windows. So they actually did an 8:30 to 4:30 event. Another thing that I was like a huge fan of, springtime events. A lot of time when you go out and fish, you're fishing in the morning, and then you catch like just the start of when it starts to heat up in the afternoon. What they did is they just went ahead and moved the takeoff time back to 8:30, and we got to fish until 4:30, which is great for springtime tournaments. So ended up being a really fun tournament. Never really got the huge bite we needed. Me and my buddy were fishing it. Ended up getting just over 17 pounds, which was good enough for, I think, 9th place is what we ended up in. Took 25 pounds to win, which there was only, I think, one bag over 20 pounds. There might have been one right at 20, and then the 25-pound bag, and the rest of them were right there between 17 to 19 pounds or so. But definitely Kincaid showed out. It's a great tournament. But the bite window thing is something that if you're not paying attention to it, it'll ruin your entire event. If you're going to fish tournaments, even when you're fishing for fun, if you're not paying attention to bite windows, you're missing one of the most critical elements to the whole situation in figuring out the fish in real time. Because in any tournament, at any time, you need to be able to change with the fish, figure out what they're transitioning to, when they're hot, when they're cold, when you need to pay attention to them. So the figuring out bite windows is almost, to me, one of the most critical points of practice, is figuring out when they're biting, if they're biting all day, if there's a certain time of the day when they're really turning on that might be odd, because generally they're going to have their really typical early morning bite, kind of slow down mid-morning, and then there will be a bite window that'll start in the early afternoon, right about 1 o'clock to 12:30-ish generally. So what you need to pay attention to is when the bite window in the morning is very short a lot of times in big events. And this is just all ways that it can help you. And when they're biting possibly early or later or whatever, because I've had a lot of events where I figured out in practice that the morning bite window was really short. So I knew that if I needed to make a big run, I needed to find somewhere close to takeoff to try to take advantage of the morning bite window, and then use that midday time to finish off my big run. If you guys are getting kind of what I'm getting at here, is that you need to formulate the time that you're actually going to be effectively fishing as best as possible around these bite windows, and how you can use them to benefit you, and figure out when the fish are changing and what information to pay attention to, what information not to pay attention to, and when to make moves, as if you know that if you're in a bite window or not. If you run a bunch of stuff but you've already established that you're outside of the bite windows that are going to be occurring during the tournament, then you know not to pay as much attention to those things. If you figured out that there's a very good bite window in the morning or a very good bite window in the early afternoon or late afternoon, and you're doing something, the fish should be biting and they're not biting, you know that you need to change. Or, for instance, I'll give you an example of me using bite windows. The fall tournaments are a time when bite windows can be insanely critical because a lot of times those fish will be on a clock completely. So Lake Dardanelle, this was actually the first Toyota Series check that I ever cut. And I cut it because of this decision, because I knew the bite windows. So I was fishing in a different area, a new area from what my primary area, I'll call it, is, where I knew that there was a pretty good amount of big fish. So lake was really crowded. I was kind of laying off trying to find some new stuff. I was sitting on 0 fish on day 2. After day 1, I had been sitting like 20th or something like that. I was sitting on 0 fish on day 2 with like an hour and a half left or so, but I knew that there was a bite window coming up. So I was fishing a bank that I thought I for sure could at least get some keepers off of. But I was starting to run out of time, and I was waiting on something to start progressing. So I knew that I would eventually, or should eventually, get some type of bite or something to tell me that they were going again. I caught a keeper. What I did when I caught that keeper, hadn't got a bite all day. I caught that keeper. I fished there for maybe another minute. Maybe. It was a few casts. And I was like, and I looked back and I told my co-angler, I said, we need to go to this better area. The afternoon bite window just opened up. So I ran over there as quick as I could. Immediately caught like a 4.5 pounder, followed it up with like a 3 pounder, ended up sneaking into check range barely with 3 fish. If I would not have moved, if I would have been paying attention to the wrong things, not paying attention to the fact that, because I'd already fished that area that I ran to, I'd already fished it in the middle of the day just seeing if I could get one outside of a bite window. But when they started biting in the afternoon, I knew that those fish were biting too. That's almost always, you'll hear guys talk about when you come back to weigh-in, all these guys that caught their fish right before weigh-in, got their biggest fish 30 minutes before weigh-in, all of a sudden started catching them. That's not just them. That's not just you when it happens. It's everybody. The fish were biting during a window. They have certain times that they feed through the day. If you can figure those out, it'll 100% help you in a tournament, and it's some very, very valuable information that you can use to make changes, know when not to make changes, and hopefully win you some money. But anyway, stay tuned for more videos, guys. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.